Katie Monroe wiped down the counter at Rosie's Diner for what felt like the 100th time that day. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon, and only 3 customers sat in the whole place. She had worked here for 3 years now, serving coffee and burgers to truckers and locals who passed through this small town. Every day felt the same. Wake up, go to work, serve food, go home, and repeat. She sometimes wondered if life would ever offer her something more exciting. The bell above the door chimed, and Katie looked up from her cleaning. What she saw made her freeze completely. 3 small creatures waddled through the entrance, their scales shimmering in colors that seemed to shift between purple and gold. They were about the size of cats with enormous eyes that sparkled like jewels. Small wings folded against their backs and thin streams of smoke curled from their tiny nostrils with each breath they took. The diner fell silent. Old Frank dropped his fork onto his plate with a clatter. Betty, who had been reading the newspaper, lowered it slowly and stared with her mouth open. Even George, the manager who had seen everything in his 30 years running this place, stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. The creatures hopped onto the counter stools with surprising grace. They chirped at each other in a language that sounded like bells mixed with birdsong. Then the one in the middle turned to face Katie. Its throat began to glow with a soft light, and then it spoke in perfect English. "We seek food," the creature said, its voice musical and strange. "We have traveled from far away and need something to eat." Katie's hand trembled as she picked up her order pad. Her mind raced with questions, but years of waitress training kicked in automatically. "What would you like?" she managed to ask. The 3 creatures huddled together, making those bell-like sounds again. After a moment, the middle one looked back at her. "We want the yellow curved grain and the creamy sauce. We have seen this food in your Earth television programs." Katie blinked several times, trying to process the request. "You mean macaroni and cheese?" The creature's eyes grew even brighter, and it bounced excitedly on the stool. "Yes, this macaroni and cheese. We want 3 orders, please." Katie wrote it down with shaking hands and walked back to the kitchen. George stared at her, his face pale. "What just happened out there?" he whispered. "I think we have aliens in the diner," Katie whispered back. "And they want mac and cheese." George nodded slowly, still looking shocked. "Well, they're customers. Make it good. Use the special cheese blend." Katie prepared 3 bowls of macaroni and cheese with extra care. She added a pinch of paprika, just like her grandmother had taught her. She topped each bowl with breadcrumbs and made sure the cheese was perfectly melted and creamy. When she carried the steaming bowls to the counter, the creatures leaned forward together, sniffing the air. What happened next would change everything Katie thought she knew about the world. The creatures didn't eat right away. Instead, they closed their eyes and began to hum. The sound was beautiful and made the air around them shimmer like heat waves. Their scales started glowing, changing through colors that Katie had never seen before. Then, moving as one, they each took a small bite of the macaroni. Everyone in the diner watched in complete silence. Katie held her breath. The creatures chewed slowly, their eyes still closed. Then the middle one opened its eyes, and Katie saw what looked like tears forming. "This is incredible," it said softly. "The balance of flavors, the smooth texture against the crispy topping, the depth of the aged cheese." "You are an artist," Katie shook her head. "I just made some mac and cheese from a recipe." "No," the creature said firmly. "You added something special. You added care and love. These are the ingredients that turn simple cooking into true art." One of the other creatures made an urgent chirping sound. The first one nodded and looked at Katie seriously. "We must speak with you privately. There is much you need to know about yourself and about the universe." Katie glanced at George, who nodded. She untied her apron and led the 3 creatures to a booth in the corner. Her heart pounded in her chest. This had to be the strangest day of her entire life. "My name is Zephix," the middle creature said once they were seated. "These are my friends, Loomis and Starwisk. We are not exactly dragons, though your stories come close to describing us. We are called Flame Cooks, and we belong to something called the Galactic Culinary Guild." Katie's head spun. "The what?" Zephix's expression became very serious. "Throughout space there are beings who have a special gift. They can transform simple ingredients into food that feeds not just the body, but also the soul. Your people don't understand this power yet, but you, Katie Monroe, have this gift. We sensed it from far away, and it led us here." "I'm just a waitress," Katie protested weakly. "You are much more than that," Loomis said in a voice like tinkling bells. "Your gift shines like a bright light. We could feel it from space, Starwisk nodded eagerly. The macaroni you made has something we call essence in it. It's emotional energy that gets into food when someone cooks with their heart. Most beings create only tiny amounts. You create more than we've seen in many, many years. Katie felt dizzy. This is crazy. You're telling me I have magic cooking powers? In simple words, yes, Zephyr said. And we came here to offer you something amazing. The Galactic Culinary Guild holds a competition every few years called the 1,000 World Competition. It is the greatest gathering of chefs in all of space. We would like you to represent Earth. Katie stared at the three small creatures. Part of her wanted to laugh, to call this whole thing impossible. But they sat right in front of her, real and solid and completely impossible to explain away. And somewhere deep inside she felt a flutter of excitement. Maybe life was about to become something more after all. I need to think about this, Katie said quietly. Of course, Zephyr said. We will return tomorrow morning for your answer. But Katie, please understand that this opportunity comes rarely. Your world is young in the eyes of the galaxy. This could be your chance to show everyone what humanity can do. That night, Katie couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in her mind. The flame cooks had left her with a small crystal that showed holographic pictures of alien kitchens and strange ingredients. The images were too detailed and too weird to be fake. This was really happening. Aliens had come to her small town and offered her a chance to compete in a cosmic cooking competition. By the time the sun rose, Katie had made her decision. When she heard the knock on her door, she already had a bag packed. She opened the door to find Zephix, Loomis, and Starwisk waiting. I'm ready, Katie said simply. Let's do this. The flame cooks led Katie through the woods outside town to a clearing she had never noticed before. In the center sat something that looked like a giant silver egg covered in patterns that hurt her eyes when she tried to look at them directly. This was their ship. Come inside, Zephix said, and a doorway appeared in the smooth surface. The interior was nothing like Katie expected. Instead of cold metal and blinking lights, she found herself in a cozy space with rounded walls that glowed softly. And there, taking up most of the room, was the most beautiful kitchen she had ever seen. Counters made of some crystal-like material lined the walls. Strange devices hung from the ceiling. A cooking surface in the center seemed to float in the air. This is our home and our training ground, Starwisk explained. Every flame cook crew has a ship like this. We live here, we cook here, and now you will learn here. For the next 2 weeks, Katie barely stepped outside the ship. The flame cooks taught her things that should have been impossible. They explained that every ingredient in the universe had its own special vibration, like a musical note. By learning to feel these vibrations, she could make food taste better and create feelings in the people who ate it. The macaroni you made had feelings of comfort and home in it, Zephix explained one morning. You did that without knowing how. Now we teach you to do it on purpose. Katie started with simple earth ingredients. She made scrambled eggs that somehow tasted like happy Sunday mornings. She baked bread that seemed to carry the warmth of her grandmother's kitchen. She grilled vegetables that captured the fresh feeling of summer rain. Each time she cooked, she learned to feel the vibrations and shape them with her intentions. Good, Loomis said, watching her work one day. But earth ingredients are easy for you. Now we must expand what you know. They brought out ingredients from across the galaxy. Crystal fruit from ice moons that sang when you cut them. Herbs that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Meat from creatures that lived in gas clouds. Each ingredient required a different approach and a different kind of understanding. Katie threw herself into the training with fierce determination. For 3 years, she had felt stuck in her small life, going through the same motions every single day. Now she had a chance at something incredible and she refused to waste it. She practiced from dawn until late at night, learning and growing and discovering abilities she never knew existed. But not everything went smoothly. 3 weeks into her training, Katie attempted a dish called Starheart Soup. The recipe required her to balance 17 different vibrations at the same time, while keeping the temperature exactly right across the entire pot. It was the hardest thing she had tried so far. The soup exploded. One moment everything seemed fine, and the next moment the contents of the pot sprayed across the entire kitchen. Katie stood there covered in glowing, foul-smelling liquid that dripped from her hair and clothes. She sat down on the floor and cried. I can't do this, she said through her tears. The other competitors have trained their whole lives. I've had a few weeks. I'm going to fail and embarrass Earth in front of the entire galaxy. Zephyr settled beside her. his small, warm body pressing against her arm. "Do you know why we chose you, Katie? Because I can cook with magic?" she said bitterly. "No. We chose you because when you made that first bowl of macaroni, you weren't trying to impress anyone. You weren't showing off your skills. You were simply trying to make someone happy. That is the heart of real cooking. That is what truly matters." "But the other competitors will be so much better," Katie protested. "They will focus on technique and complexity," Loomis said. "They will make dishes that look amazing and taste incredible. But you, Katie, you make food that touches people's hearts. That is much more rare and valuable." "The competition has 3 parts," Starwisk added. "Technique, creativity, and soul. Most competitors are good at 1 or maybe 2. You can master all 3, but only if you believe in yourself." Katie wiped her eyes and looked at the mess covering the kitchen. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's clean this up and try again." They worked late into the night. This time, when Katie prepared the Starheart soup, she didn't think about impressing judges or proving herself. She thought about the first time her mother had made chicken soup for her when she was sick as a child. She remembered how that simple bowl of soup had made everything feel better. The soup glowed softly in the bowl, swirling with colors like a tiny galaxy. When the flame cooks tasted it, they fell completely silent for a long moment. "This," Zephyx finally said, "is why you will succeed." As the days passed, Katie's skills grew rapidly. She learned to cook with ingredients that defied logic. She practiced techniques that seemed impossible at first, but became natural with repetition. She discovered that her gift wasn't just about making food taste good. It was about creating experiences, about making connections, about expressing emotions through flavors and textures. One evening, as Katie practiced making a dessert from crystallized starlight, Loomis approached her with a serious expression. "Tomorrow we leave for the competition," the small creature said. "You have learned much, but remember that learning never stops. Some of the greatest chefs in the galaxy will be there. Watch them, learn from them, and don't be afraid to try new things." Katie nodded, feeling nervous excitement building in her stomach. "What if I freeze up? What if I forget everything you've taught me?" Starwisk hopped onto the counter and looked up at her with kind eyes. "Then you remember why you cook. Not for glory or prizes, but because you care about the people who will eat your food. That caring is your greatest strength." That night, Katie barely slept. She reviewed recipes in her mind and practiced meditation techniques that Loomis had taught her. She thought about her grandmother, who had first taught her to cook with love. She thought about the regulars at Rosie's Diner, who always smiled when she brought them their usual orders. She thought about the moment when 3 small dragon-like creatures had walked through the door and changed her life forever. The next morning, Katie stood at the ship's boarding ramp and looked back at Earth's blue sky one last time before the competition. She felt scared and excited in equal measure. Somewhere out in space, 346 other competitors were preparing for the same challenge. They came from worlds she couldn't imagine, with skills beyond her understanding. But Katie had something special too. She had learned to cook with her heart. She had discovered a gift she never knew existed. And she had 3 small alien friends who believed in her completely. "Are you ready?" Zephyx asked softly. Katie took a deep breath and smiled. "As ready as I'll ever be." The ship's door closed and they lifted off toward the stars. Katie's new life as a cosmic chef had truly begun. The journey through space took 3 days, even though the ship moved faster than light. Katie spent most of that time reviewing everything she had learned and practicing meditation to calm her racing thoughts. Through the ship's windows, she watched stars streak past like rivers of light. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. "The competition takes place on Station Gastronomia," Zephyx explained, showing her holographic images. "It was built specifically to host the 1,000-world competition. Chefs from every corner of the galaxy gather there." The images showed a massive space station shaped like a flower, with each petal a different environment. Some glowed with heat, others sparkled with ice, and a few seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. "Each petal represents a different way of cooking," Starwisk added. "Fire cooking, ice crafting, pressure cuisine, and many others." The competition happens in the central dome where all traditions meet on neutral ground. When they finally arrived, Katie pressed her face against the window and gasped. Station Gastronomia hung in the darkness of space like a jewel, covered in lights from 1,000 different worlds. Ships of every imaginable shape surrounded it. Some looked like crystals, others like living creatures. and a few hurt her eyes to look at directly. The docking process took over an hour. When the airlock finally opened, Katie stepped onto the station and immediately felt overwhelmed. The air was filled with 1,000 different smells, some familiar but most completely alien. Beings of every description moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs like her, some floated, some crawled, and some moved in ways her brain struggled to understand. A tall being with skin like polished marble approached them. Its eyes held what looked like distant stars. "Welcome to Station Gastronomia," it said in a voice like singing crystal. "I am Coordinator Vex. You must be the Earth representative." Katie extended her hand nervously. "Katie Monroe. Nice to meet you." Vex looked at her hand for a moment, then reached out and copied the gesture. "Your credentials have been verified. The Flame Cook's recommendation carries great weight. You will stay in the competitor wing. The opening ceremony begins in 6 hours." Their assigned quarters were more luxurious than any hotel Katie had ever seen. The main room had a full kitchen that could apparently adapt to any species' needs. A large window showed the stars slowly turning past. Katie unpacked her few belongings and tried to calm her pounding heart. A chime sounded at the door. When Katie opened it, she found a young woman standing there. A human woman. She had short, dark hair and a nervous smile on her face. "Oh, thank God," the woman said. "I thought I was the only human here." "I'm Lisa Grant. I'm competing too." Katie felt a wave of relief. "You're from Earth, really?" "Queens, New York," Lisa said. "I was running a food truck when these beings made of pure light showed up and told me I had cooking magic. I thought I'd lost my mind until they proved it was real." She laughed, but it sounded shaky. "This is all completely insane, right?" Katie found herself laughing too. "Totally insane. Want to come in?" They spent the next hour sharing their stories. Lisa's journey had been similar to Katie's. Unexpected alien visitors, rapid training, and growing awareness of abilities she never knew existed. Her sponsors were beings called the Luminare, creatures made of living light. "There are 5 of us," Lisa said. 5 humans competing. Apparently Earth has been on the Guild's watch list for a while. They think humanity is about to experience a culinary awakening, whatever that means. 5 out of how many total? Katie asked. 347, Lisa said, and Katie's stomach dropped. "But hey, at least we're not alone, right?" The opening ceremony was held in the central dome, a vast space with a transparent ceiling that showed the stars beyond. Competitors were arranged by their homeworld, and Katie found herself standing with Lisa and 3 other humans. An older man named Henry Clark from Louisiana, a chef named Carlos Rivera from Mexico City, and a baker named Sophie Turner from London. "Look at us," Henry said with a warm smile. "Earth's first cosmic cooking team. Never thought I'd see this day." The ceremony began with a holographic display showing the history of the competition, stretching back thousands of years. Then Coordinator Vex appeared at the center of the dome, magnified to enormous size. "Competitors," Vex's voice rang out across the vast space. "You have been chosen because you possess the rare gift of culinary essence. In 3 days the competition begins. Until then, explore the station. Learn from each other. Remember that while you compete as individuals, you represent your worlds." As the crowd dispersed, Katie felt a hand on her shoulder. A human hand. She turned to find a woman in her 40s with silver-streaked hair and sharp, calculating eyes. "You must be Katie Monroe," the woman said. "I'm Patricia Wells, San Francisco." "You're the 5th human," Katie said. "Yes." Patricia's expression was cold. "I'll be direct with you. I've been training with the crystalline chefs for 5 years. I've given up everything for this competition. So when you and the others showed up with barely a month of training, taking spots that others worked years to earn, I was not happy." Katie felt heat rise in her face. "I didn't ask for this. They came to me, I know," Patricia sighed, "and I know it's not your fault. But understand that some of us have sacrificed more than you can imagine to be here. Don't expect me to help you." She walked away before Katie could respond. Katie stood there feeling shaken. She hadn't thought about it that way before. How many beings had trained their whole lives for a chance at this competition? How many had been passed over so that untrained humans could compete? "Do not let her words trouble you," Zephyx said, appearing at Katie's side. "Fear makes people cruel. She is afraid you will succeed where she might fail." That night, Katie couldn't sleep again. She wandered the station's observation decks, watching ships come and go. Other competitors passed by, some nodding politely, others ignoring her completely. She saw beings made of ice and fire and living shadow. She heard languages that sounded like music and others that felt like mathematics. In one of the viewing areas, she met a competitor named Whisper, a being that looked like living smoke. "First time competing?" Whisper asked in a voice like wind through leaves. "That obvious?" Katie said. "You have the look all newcomers share." Wonder mixed with terror. Whisper's form rippled with what might have been laughter. "Do not worry too much. Yes, the competition is difficult. Yes, many competitors have trained for years. But the judges look for something beyond technical skill. They search for soul, for that spark that makes food into art. No amount of training can teach that. You either have it or you don't." "How do you know if you have it?" Katie asked. "If you are here, you have it," Whisper said simply. "The sponsors do not make mistakes. Trust in yourself, Katie Monroe of Earth. The galaxy is watching, and I think you will surprise everyone." Katie returned to her quarters feeling slightly better. She found the flame cooks waiting for her, their scales glowing softly in the dim light. "Tomorrow the competition begins," Zephyk said. "Remember everything we taught you, but more importantly, remember who you are. You are not just a competitor. You are the first human to stand in this arena. Whatever happens, you have already made history." Katie nodded and finally managed to fall asleep. In her dreams, she cooked for billions of beings across the galaxy, and they all smiled as they ate. Katie woke before dawn, though there was no real dawn on the space station. She had barely slept, her mind filled with anxiety about the coming competition. She found herself in the practice kitchen trying to calm her nerves by cooking a simple breakfast. "You should rest," Loomis said, finding her there. "I can't," Katie admitted. "I keep thinking about all those other competitors. What if I'm not good enough?" Starwisk hopped onto the counter. "Then you learn and grow. That is the point of competition. Not to prove perfection, but to discover what you can become." The first round was called the Technique Round. All 347 competitors would receive identical ingredients and have 3 hours to prepare a dish demonstrating their mastery. Katie stood at her cooking station, one of hundreds arranged in a massive spiral pattern in the central dome. Spectators from across the galaxy filled the observation galleries above. Holographic cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting to billions of viewers. The ingredients materialized on her station. A protein that looked like crystallized starlight, vegetables that hummed with their own energy, grains that shifted colors in the light. Also included were some earth ingredients: olive oil, garlic, salt, and pepper. "Competitors," Vex's voice boomed across the dome. "You have 3 hours. Begin." Katie's hands moved on instinct. She had practiced with these types of ingredients for weeks. The protein needed gentle heat or it would turn bitter. The vegetables had to be prepared in a specific order to release their flavors properly. The grains required constant motion to prevent them from sticking together into an inedible mass. She fell into a rhythm, letting her training guide her. Around her, other competitors worked with methods ranging from familiar to impossible. A tall insect-like being named Critch sang to the ingredients, the vibrations physically changing their structure. Aquatic chefs worked in pressurized water tanks, their tentacles moving with liquid grace. A being made of pure energy simply thought at the food and it cooked itself. Katie decided to make a risotto-style dish, using the alien grain as her base. She built layers of flavor with the protein and vegetables, adding each element at just the right moment. As she worked, she did more than just follow technique. She poured her essence into the dish, filling it with the feeling of discovery, the wonder of stepping into a larger world for the first time. With 15 minutes remaining, she plated her creation, arranging it to look like a spiral galaxy with the grains forming the arms and pieces of protein, like stars scattered throughout. "Time," Vex announced. For the next 2 hours, 7 judges moved from station to station. They represented different galactic culinary traditions and tasted each dish in complete silence, making notes on crystal tablets that glowed softly. When they reached Katie's station, she held her breath. The lead judge, a being that looked like a floating collection of golden spheres, sampled her dish carefully. Its spheres shifted through different colors as it ate. "Interesting," it said in a voice like wind chimes. "The technique is solid, though somewhat basic compared to others. But there is an emotional quality here that elevates the whole dish. Well done." The results were posted that evening on holographic screens throughout the station. Katie had ranked 72nd out of 347. Not amazing, but not eliminated either. Only the bottom 50 were sent home after each round. Lisa had ranked 89th. Henry was 65th. Carlos had done better at 43rd, and Sophie was 91st. Patricia, to Katie's dismay, had ranked 3rd overall. "You did well," Zefik said that night. "The first round establishes basic skill. The real competition begins tomorrow." The second round was called the creativity round, and it had almost no rules. Competitors could use any ingredients they wanted, employ any technique they knew, and create any dish they could imagine. The only requirement was that it had to be something that had never been made before in the entire history of the galaxy. Katie spent most of the night in the practice kitchen, experimenting with different combinations. She tried dozens of ideas, rejecting most of them. Then around 3 in the morning, inspiration struck like lightning. She thought about her journey from a simple diner waitress to a cosmic chef. She thought about that first moment when she had served macaroni to 3 small dragon-like aliens, and her whole world had changed. And suddenly she knew exactly what she needed to make. The next day, Katie filled her station with ingredients from Earth and from distant worlds. She worked with fierce concentration, barely aware of time passing. She made a deconstructed version of macaroni and cheese, but transformed every element. The pasta was made from star wheat, which grew in zero gravity and had an almost ethereal texture. The cheese sauce incorporated emotion-sensitive fungi from a distant moon that would taste different based on the eater's emotional state. The breadcrumb topping was made from crystallized hope, a rare ingredient that the flame cooks had helped her obtain. But her secret weapon was something extra. She created a miniature holographic projection that played above the dish, showing images of her grandmother's kitchen, the smell of comfort food, the feeling of home and love and safety. When time was called, Katie stepped back and looked at what she had created. It was beautiful and strange, familiar yet completely alien. The judges took much longer with the creativity round dishes. When they reached Katie's station, they all fell silent as they tasted. The lead judge's golden spheres shimmered with colors Katie had never seen before. "This is extraordinary," it finally said. "You have taken a simple dish from your world and transformed it into something universal. The technical execution is impressive, but the emotional storytelling makes it truly remarkable. You have shown us not just what humans eat, but what food means to humanity." That evening, Katie checked the results with shaking hands. She had ranked 9th overall. Lisa was 23rd, Henry 30th, Carlos 15th, and Sophie 47th. Patricia had dropped to 7th place, and the look she gave Katie across the competitor lounge was pure ice. "One more round," Starwisk said excitedly. "The soul round. This is where champions are made." Katie felt both excited and terrified. She had exceeded her own expectations so far, but the final round would be the hardest. After the second round eliminations, only 50 competitors remained. These were the best of the best, beings who had proven their skill and creativity beyond doubt. That night, Katie met with the other humans in a quiet corner of the station. They had all survived to the final round, even Sophie, who had just barely made it. "We did it," Lisa said, looking amazed. 5 humans brand new to galactic cooking, and we all made it to the finals. "Earth should be proud," Henry said warmly. "No matter what happens in the soul round, we've already shown the galaxy what humanity can do." Carlos nodded. "But let's not stop here. Let's give them a final round they'll never forget." Even Patricia, who had kept her distance, joined their circle. "I was wrong to be cold to you all," she said quietly. "You've earned your places here. May the best chef win tomorrow, human or otherwise." Katie returned to her quarters feeling a strange mix of emotions: pride at how far she had come, fear of the final challenge ahead, and deep gratitude for the 3 small alien creatures who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. "Sleep well," Zefik said as the flame cooks prepared to leave. "Tomorrow you cook not for judges or scores but for yourself. Show the galaxy the soul of Katie Monroe." The final round was different from the first 2. Instead of cooking in the central dome with everyone watching, each of the 50 remaining competitors was given a private kitchen. The instructions were simple but terrifying. Create a dish that reveals the soul of your cooking. There are no judges for this round, Vex explained during the briefing. Your dishes will be served to all other competitors and they will vote. You cannot vote for yourself and you will not know who made which dish. This round tests your ability to recognize and honor true excellence. Katie was given 24 hours to prepare. She could use any ingredients she wanted and any techniques she knew. The flame cooks could offer advice, but the actual cooking had to be hers alone. She sat in her private kitchen staring at empty counters and felt completely frozen. The soul of her cooking? What did that even mean? She had barely been cooking with magic for a month. How could she compete against beings who had spent lifetimes mastering their craft? Hours passed and Katie remained stuck. She tried to start several times but kept stopping, unsure if any idea was good enough. The pressure felt crushing. Zephyx found her sitting on the floor, her head in her hands. "What troubles you?" he asked gently. "I don't know what my soul is," Katie said, her voice breaking. "Patricia has been training for 5 years. She knows exactly who she is as a chef. These other competitors have dedicated their entire lives to cooking. Me? A month ago I was just serving coffee and trying not to spill anything on customers. And yet," Zephyx said softly, "your macaroni called to us from across space. Your creativity round dish made the lead judge experience emotions they had forgotten. Why do you think that happened?" "I don't know," Katie whispered. "Yes, you do." Zephyx hopped closer, bringing his warm little body next to her. "What is the one thing present in every dish you have made, from that first bowl of macaroni to your deconstructed masterpiece?" Katie thought back through the past month. Every lesson, every practice session, every success and failure. She thought about why she had become a waitress in the first place, not for the money or the glamour, but because she liked taking care of people, making sure they had what they needed. "Care," she said slowly. "I cook because I care. About the people who will eat the food, about the ingredients themselves, about creating a moment of connection when someone takes a bite and feels understood." "Yes," Zephyx said, his scales glowing with warmth. "That is your soul. That is what makes you special, not your technique or your training, but the simple fact that you care deeply. Now show the galaxy what that looks like." Katie stood up and began to work. She didn't overthink it this time. She made soup. Simple, humble soup. But into that soup she poured everything she had learned and everything she was. She used ingredients from Earth and ingredients from dozens of alien worlds. She employed techniques taught by the flame cooks and instincts developed through years of cooking for people she cared about. The soup was golden and shimmering, with vegetables that glowed softly and proteins that melted on the tongue like snowflakes. But more than its appearance or texture, it tasted like every comforting meal Katie had ever eaten. It tasted like her grandmother's kitchen on Sunday afternoons. It tasted like the moment when a stranger becomes a friend over shared food. It tasted like home, like love, like the feeling of being truly cared for. When she finished, with an hour to spare before the deadline, Katie felt exhausted, but peaceful. This was it. This was the best and truest thing she could create. If it wasn't good enough, at least she had been honest. The tasting took place over 6 hours. Each competitor sampled all 49 other dishes in private, rating them on a simple scale. This dish reveals a soul or it does not. Katie tasted dishes that challenged everything she thought food could be. She ate a compressed star that exploded into countless flavors. She tasted music that had been solidified and seasoned. She sampled something that could only be described as the taste of a memory from someone else's life. And then she tasted soup. It was simple compared to the other elaborate dishes. Just soup in a plain bowl. But with the first spoonful, Katie felt tears stream down her face. It tasted like care itself, like someone who cooked not to impress or dazzle, but simply to nourish and comfort. She marked it down immediately. This dish reveals a soul. She didn't know it yet, but she had just voted for her own soup. The voting took another hour to process. When Vex finally called all 50 competitors back to the central dome, Katie's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The flame cooks flew beside her, their scales bright with excitement. The central dome was packed with spectators. Every being on the station seemed to have gathered to witness the final results. Holographic screens floated everywhere, broadcasting to billions across the galaxy. Vex stood at the center, magnified to enormous size. "The results of the Soul Round are unprecedented," the coordinator announced. "In 10,000 years of competition, we have never seen anything quite like this." The winner received support from every single competitor who tasted their dish. Unanimous recognition of culinary soul. Katie could barely breathe. Beside her, Lisa grabbed her hand and squeezed tight. "The 1,000-world champion," Vex said, "is Katie Monroe of Earth." For a moment, Katie couldn't move or think or even breathe. Then Lisa was hugging her and crying. Henry was laughing with joy. Carlos and Sophie were cheering. Even Patricia approached with tears in her eyes. "That soup," Patricia said quietly. "It reminded me why I started cooking in the first place. Before the training and the ambition and the pressure, it reminded me that cooking is about caring for people. You deserve this win completely." The flame cooks flew circles around Katie's head, chittering and singing with happiness. Other competitors came to congratulate her. She shook hands and tentacles and things she didn't have names for, feeling overwhelmed and grateful and still half convinced this was all a dream. The champions' feast that night was held in Katie's honor. Chefs from across the galaxy presented dishes, each one a gift celebrating her victory. Katie tasted foods she would remember for the rest of her life. But what she would remember most was the feeling of acceptance and belonging. Later that night, Katie found herself on an observation deck with Zephix, watching stars slowly turn past the window. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you return to Earth as its first cosmic cooking chef," Zephix said. "You will teach others what you have learned. You will help your species take its place in the galactic culinary community. The guild will establish a chapter on your world, and you will lead it." Katie thought about her old life at Rosie's diner, about George and the regular customers, about her small apartment and simple routines. "Can I still work at the diner sometimes?" she asked. Zephix's laughter sounded like music. "Katie Monroe, you have become one of the most celebrated chefs in the known universe, and you want to know if you can still serve breakfast at a roadside diner?" "That's where it all started," Katie said softly. "That bowl of macaroni and cheese. I don't want to forget that." "Then yes," Zephix said warmly. "Yes, you can still work at Rosie's diner. The soul of cooking is not about where you cook or who you cook for. It is about the care you bring to every single dish, whether you serve it to cosmic dragons or truck drivers." Katie smiled, watching the infinite stars. Somewhere out there were thousands of worlds and billions of beings. The universe was bigger and stranger and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. She had started as a simple waitress in a small town, unsure if life held anything more. Now she knew that it did. Now she knew that magic existed, that caring mattered, and that sometimes the most extraordinary adventures began with the simplest acts of kindness. In a few days, she would return to Earth and begin teaching others. She would help humanity join the galactic culinary community. She would cook for presidents and aliens and everyone in between. But she would never forget that Tuesday afternoon when 3 small creatures had walked into a diner and ordered macaroni and cheese. That moment had changed everything. And Katie understood now that every moment held that same potential. Every meal was a chance to care for someone. Every dish was an opportunity to create connection. Every bite could be magic if you put your heart into making it. She had won the 1,000-world competition, but that wasn't really what mattered. What mattered was that she had discovered who she truly was and what she was meant to do. She was Katie Monroe, cosmic chef and diner waitress, and she was exactly where she belonged.